Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be learning all about cookies. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. You've probably heard the famous story about the invention of the chocolate chip cookie involving Ruth Wakefield at the Toll House Inn. The story goes that she ran out of baker's chocolate and hastily chopped up a semi-sweet chocolate bar, assuming it would melt into the dough, but instead, the chunks stayed intact, making the chocolate chip cookie a happy little accident. What do you think? Did Wakefield really invent chocolate chip cookies by mistake? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is biscuit. That's B-I-S-C-U-I-T. In the United States, we use the word biscuit to describe a fluffy, savory bread roll, but in many other parts of the world, like the United Kingdom, biscuit is the standard term for what we call a cookie. The word comes from the Latin bis, meaning twice, and coctus, meaning cooked, or coekje, meaning to cook. So the word literally means twice cooked, referring to the ancient method of baking bread once, then drying it out in a slow oven to make it hard, durable, and resistant to spoilage for long journeys. Roman soldiers and sailors relied on hardtack or rusks, essentially double-baked unleavened bread, because it was the only way to store grain calories for months at sea without them molding. Over centuries, bakers began adding sugar, spices, and butter to these hard cakes to make them more palatable, eventually transforming a survival ration into the sweet, crumbly treat we enjoy today. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about cookies. Number 1. The first cookies were actually edible thermometers used by Dutch bakers. Long before modern thermostats and digital timers, bakers needed a way to test the temperature of their wood-fired ovens before committing a whole cake to the heat. They would take a very small amount of cake batter and place it in the oven to see how quickly it baked, which gave them the English word cookie derived from the Dutch word koekje, meaning little cake. Because these test cakes were made from the same rich batter as larger cakes, but in a convenient handheld size, they quickly became a popular treat in their own right. By the 17th century, these little cakes were being sold on the streets and consumed with tea or coffee, making the transition from a kitchen tool to a beloved snack. Just goes to show, often the sweetest inventions start out as just a practical solution to a mundane problem. Number 2. The world's largest cookie covered a parking lot and weighed over 40,000 pounds. In 2003, the Immaculate Baking Company in Flat Rock, North Carolina, decided to bake their way into the record books by creating a chocolate chip cookie that measured 102 feet wide. To make all that dough required 30,000 eggs, along with 12,000 pounds of flour, over 8,000 pounds of sugar, about 6,500 pounds of butter, and 10 million chocolate chips. Then, baking it was a whole other challenge. They had to specially build an oven by laying down a bed of perlite and gravel as an insulator so they didn't literally scorch the earth, and then they put down sheets of aluminum as the pan. They used about 20 propane heaters around the perimeter, blowing heat in from the sides, and then a polyester film, essentially the same material used to make Mylar helium balloons, was put over the top to hold the heat in. The oven heated up to about 300 or 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and it took about 10 hours to bake the cookie all the way through. Once the record was verified, the giant cookie was cut up and sold in boxes to raise money for a local museum. Number 3. The string on a box of animal crackers was originally designed so the box could be used as a Christmas ornament. When Nabisco introduced Barnum's animal crackers in 1902, they wanted to market the treat as a special gift during the holiday season. The rectangular box was designed to look like a circus wagon cage, and the string was attached so parents could hang the box directly on the Christmas tree for children to find on Christmas morning. This clever marketing strategy helped turn a simple, hard, sweet cracker into a nostalgic part of American childhood that has endured for generations. It's a wonderful example of the power of packaging design to change the way we interact with our food. Number 4. Fortune cookies are not actually from China. They were most likely invented in California. While we associate the prophetic treats with Chinese takeout, you won't typically find them in restaurants in China because they're actually an American invention with Japanese roots. Most historians believe they were popularized by Japanese immigrants in San Francisco or Los Angeles in the early 20th century, based on a Japanese cracker called sugiura senbei. During World War II, when many Japanese American bakeries were forced to close due to internment, Chinese American manufacturers took over the production of the cookies. And from then on, the cookie became associated with Chinese American cuisine. And our 5th and final fun fact for today: the Girl Scout cookie tradition started in a high school cafeteria in Oklahoma more than 100 years ago. In 1917, the Mistletoe Troop in Muskogee, Oklahoma, decided to bake cookies and sell them in their high school cafeteria as a service project to fund their activities. This humble bake sale predated those famous boxes we all know and love today. Originally, the Scouts baked simple sugar cookies themselves in their own kitchens and wrapped them in wax paper bags. By the 1930s, the organization began licensing commercial bakers to produce the cookies to ensure consistency and meeting the growing national demand. Today, the sale of these cookies is the greatest girl-led entrepreneurial program in the world, teaching millions of girls skills in goal setting, decision-making, and business ethics. But it all started with just a few homemade batches in a school cafeteria. Now for some news you can use. If you want to take your homemade cookies to the next level, the secret is often patience, specifically chilling your dough before you bake it. When you let your cookie dough rest in the refrigerator for a day, the flour hydrates fully, absorbing the moisture from the eggs and butter, which leads to a chewier texture and a deeper, more caramelized flavor. Also, chilling the dough solidifies the fat, meaning the cookies spread less in the oven and stay thicker and fudgier in the center. Of course, we all have our own preferences, and I would encourage you not to be afraid to experiment with variations based on a tried and true recipe to create something uniquely your own. For example, I recently wanted to make an Aztec hot chocolate cookie inspired by one of my favorite ice cream flavors from a local shop. I started with a classic chocolate chip cookie dough, but added a little cocoa powder, some cayenne pepper, cinnamon, and a pinch of espresso powder. After a few batches trying different ratios, I now have my new favorite cookies just the way I like them. Now, if you want to try my recipe for Aztec hot chocolate double chocolate cookies, check the show notes, but if you want to experiment to find your own perfect treat, here are some of the variables you might alter depending on your desired result. If you want a chewier cookie, increase the ratio of brown sugar to white sugar. Brown sugar contains molasses, which adds moisture and acidity. This not only keeps the cookie soft, but also reacts with baking soda to create a dense, chewy texture. On the other hand, if you want a crunchier, crispier cookie, use more white granulated sugar. If you want a fudgier, more dense texture, use melted butter instead of softened butter. When you cream softened butter with sugar in the mixer, you're whipping air bubbles into the dough, which leads to a cake-like lift. Melting the butter first eliminates those air pockets, resulting in a denser, fudgier consistency similar to a brownie. If you want a puffy or cake-like cookie, swap some of the baking soda for baking powder. Baking soda promotes spreading and browning, whereas baking powder is a leavening agent designed to create lift. Now, if you want bakery-style chewiness, try swapping all-purpose flour for bread flour. Bread flour has a higher protein content, which creates more gluten development. This gives the cookie a significant bite and elasticity that mimics the massive cookies you buy at high-end bakeries. And finally, if you want to make the chocolate flavor pop, try sprinkling some flaky sea salt on top immediately after pulling the cookies from the oven. Salt is a flavor enhancer, and a pinch of salt doesn't make that cookie taste salty. Instead, it suppresses the bitterness of the chocolate and balances the sweetness of the sugar, making that chocolate taste more intense. Now, the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, did Ruth Wakefield invent the chocolate chip cookie by accident? This one is a popular fiction. The famous story about the, quote, failed melting chocolate is a myth. Ruth Wakefield was a college-educated home economist and a perfectionist chef who knew exactly how chocolate behaved when baked. She knew perfectly well that semi-sweet chocolate chunks would hold their shape. She intentionally set out to invent the Toll House Chocolate Crunch cookie to offer her guests something different from her usual butterscotch nut wafers, and it was an immediate success, exactly as she planned. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about cookies with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.